I'm joined by Levi. Levi was one of our town hall participants about a few months ago on Show Me the Money Club. And he made such an impression on us that we thought we'd follow up with an article on Levi, specifically him talking about, what college town drivers do and how they become super efficient as he has, what cars they drive, what their strategies are. And there are many college towns in the US, as we know. And, he's here to talk about that, but also a couple of other issues that we featured him on Show Me the Money Club. So, Levi, how are you?
I'm doing well, Sergio. How are you, man?
We're doing good. We're growing. We're trying to inform and educate, as you know, and you've become an integral part of that process at the moment. And we're going to obviously continue doing that. So, you live in Syracuse and you drive in Syracuse, right?
That's correct.
And we know it's a college town. So tell me a little bit about, first of all, how you got into rideshare, why you got into rideshare, and besides that, how you decided what car to buy, some of your strategies are. The floor is yours.
Yeah, let's kind of do that. Right before the pandemic hit, I was in Las Vegas on a business trip. I was an executive at an advertising agency. It was just another trade show. And I remember talking to my Uber driver on the way to the airport, just complaining about money, and you know how it is when you get in those Ubers, you just seem to open up about stuff. And my Uber driver was like, you should be an Uber driver. And I was like, yo, man, I just told you I'm vice president at a company. Condescending and arrogant as I was. And he's like, no, let me tell you, you make good money. And on top of that, you're really good with people. And I bet you could do really well with that. So I signed up on the flight back, and a couple of weeks went by and I didn't do anything with it. Then one Friday on the way home from work, I turned it on and boom, 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 boom. It was ride. I made $100 in a couple hours, and I thought that was kind of fun. And then I started doing the math. I would basically turn Uber on my commute into work in Syracuse. And I would pick one or two people up on the way into work. And then I would take one to two people on my way home. And I thought it just turned my commute into basically a tax deduction. And I love that. And then the pandemic hit, and honestly, I just got tired of Zoom meetings and traveling with a mask everywhere. And I just did the math, and I thought I could make enough money as an Uber driver to quit my job and basically do some consulting and use Uber as kind of my flex income. So if I lost all of my clients, I could full-time Uber drive and still pay the bills. And that's how I became an Uber driver, and I love it. I wouldn't trade it for anything.
Yeah, I mean, that comes, the common thread between all the people that I've interviewed and did articles on are basically saying the same thing. It's flexibility, it's the freedom. Although, we do give up some of our rights as employees, obviously, the benefits of that. But you hinted on something that's very important to Show Me the Money Club viewers now, and especially for us as hosts, is that you have to know your cost. You said I did the math twice in that one sentence, and I'm like,
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of drivers do not do the math. Okay.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, obviously, Uber and Lyft are not going to do anything about it. I mean, why should they? Because sometimes, the math is not straight. But besides that, if you did as a driver your cost analysis and as deeply as you do, then you will understand exactly if you should do rideshare or not, right?
That's right.
So did you buy a car specifically for rideshare, or did you have a car, or how did that come about?
Yeah, let me just make sure you understand. For me, doing the math meant, I was an accountant and an economist. That's what I went to graduate school for. So for me, I'm a spreadsheet person, and I love analyzing all the little nuances of how to make money as a rideshare person. And yes, basically, midway through 2021, I was like, okay, I was driving a Toyota Avalon, and I was getting 22 to 26 miles to the gallon, and I knew that if I switched up to a hybrid or even an electric vehicle, that I would make more money. And so I started just basically looking at different vehicles. And because I was driving in a college town, I was torn looking at the new hybrid Toyota Sienna, because I could do Uber XL. It's a hybrid vehicle, and it would just I think it would have been perfect. But it was a new vehicle, and I just wasn't sure. And my wife told me to check out the Prius, and like every pretentious person, I was like, I don't want to drive a Prius. But I did the math, and it was amazing how much money, when you save, instead of getting 20 miles to the gallon, you get 60 miles to the gallon. It's just so much more money that you can make. And so, yeah, then I went to the Toyota dealership, and the guy was like, well, this one's already for sale or being sold. And I was like, here's the money right here. Here's the cash. I'll pay you right this second for this vehicle. And I walked out of the dealership that day with a Toyota Prius. Yeah. And I have the Prius Prime. So we're a one car family, actually. Me and my wife share a car. And when I don't Uber, we only drive about 20 miles a day. So we almost always drive electric because it's a plug-in vehicle. And then when I Uber, I'm putting in, 300 miles on a 12-hour shift.
Yeah.
So then, of course, I'm going into the hybrid mode. But yeah, of course, I bought a Prius explicit because I knew I'd make the most amount of money as an Uber driver.
Yeah. So, another common thread with all the drivers I speak to is that, when they first started, a lot of people think ride sharing is easy, right? And it's picking up point A, dropping off point B, on to the next one. But I disagree with all those people who think rideshare is easy. Rideshare has a very steep learning curve, and some people actually never learn.
That's
And
right.
because they don't have a strategy that applies to their city, they don't understand the flow of the city. They just get out there willy-nilly and then complain that they're not making any money.
That's
For
right.
those people, I go, well, you're not doing the 3 Ps, right? You have to have patience, you have to have positioning, and you have to know
Mhm.
when to be, where to be, because rideshare is not a 9 to 5 job, right? You have to
No.
drive when and where there is demand. But in your case, you're in a college town. So talk to me a little bit about, what strategies you applied, and then the improvement you saw from the first, let's say, month or two of driving versus now. I'm sure you're a veteran and you know exactly what to do,
Right.
when to be, where to be.
Yeah. So basically, a college town, obviously, there's colleges all throughout America, but a college town, in my opinion, is a college where the college is located in one location. And basically, the things that the kids want to do are in another location. And there's just not really efficient transportation between those two things. And so Syracuse is a great college town for that. In fact, it's hilly and there's really bad weather. Like right now, it's a blizzard outside and the kids just don't want to walk even a block or two. So the college kids take short trips, and I kind of just figured it out that the shorter the trip, the more profitable I was. And in fact, for 2023, I've taken an analysis of the 224 trips that I've done this year, and of those 224 trips, 71 of them are under 1 mile.
Wow.
And I still get the minimum of $4.29. And then on top of it, because you're taking these short trips, they're 5 or 10 minutes at the most, then you're also completing the quest faster, right? So even though the quests are smaller, and we can talk about the future, what's going on with our economy, but I can complete the quest. And then there's promotions. Like we get promotions here in Syracuse. We get an extra $2 for every trip we do on campus, basically. It's in the city, but it's on campus. And so if I could do 5 or even 6 trips in an hour, you can do the math. You can make a lot of money. Now, you're not making that all the time,
Right.
but in those 10 to 1 o'clock in the morning time period, you're doing 40, 50, $60 an hour because you're getting the quest, the promotions, $4 minimum trips, surges. And the most important thing, Sergio, in my opinion, is tips.
Yep.
I see so many drivers complaining about tips, and I don't have that experience at all. I get a tip 1 out of every 3 trips that I do. And remember, I'm taking short trips. I'm not going to the airport and taking a businessman or whatever. I'm taking
Yeah.
college kids around town. I'm taking low-income people to work, here in Syracuse. And I'm still getting a tip 1 out of every 3 trips. And that average tip is about $1.71 every tip.
So you even have that figured out down to the penny, right?
Down to the penny.
See,
Yeah.
this is why Levi is successful at what he does. And a lot of drivers, you do complain about not getting tips, right? Well, I think it has a lot to do with the driver's personality, obviously. because
Correct.
I interviewed Jeff yesterday, and you met Jeff on our town hall,
That's right.
and he's like the tip king. He gets like 50% of his trips get
It's amazing.
it's just crazy, right? But then, those are things that drivers can learn from you guys and apply themselves, right? I mean, they don't
Correct.
have to have the fantastic Santa beard that you have, but the personality shines through every time somebody walks into your car. So let's talk a little bit about your typical day of driving Uber, a full shift, whatever you do, how many
Yeah.
hours you drive, what days you choose to drive, and let's talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So I am not the kind of person that I don't take every trip, but I definitely take majority of the trips that I get. So my focus every time I get in the car is to take the shortest trip possible. So any trip over 20 minutes, and that includes the 5 minutes to go pick up and the 15 minutes to drop off or whatever, I just don't take it. So I don't care where it is or how much it's paying. I'm just not taking any trip over 20 minutes. So that means, 20 minutes times three gives me three trips every hour. And that's kind of my tactical day-to-day strategy. And the shorter the trip, the better.
Yeah.
So I don't even look at the dollar amount of the trip.
Yeah.
I don't look at the mileage. I just look at the time. That's what I focus on. I just do that quick little math.
Yeah.
The way I drive is I drive Monday through Thursday. I drive in the morning. So I get out about 6 in the morning and I drive till about 9. I do, 2-3 hours. I maximize my diamond status during that time. And I try to take as many trips as possible during that time, my acceptance rate as high as possible. So that way, when it gets to the high profitability times, I can use more discretion, right? I can choose to, and I can start declining rides when the surges are happening. It's really profitable. So in the mornings, it's more about just maintaining my diamond status and keeping my acceptance rate high. And I make somewhere between $20 to $25 an hour before expenses, Monday through Thursday. I get my car cleaned. So the very next thing I do is I go get gas and I get the car cleaned, interior and exterior. And then I go to the mall and I charge my car. I found some free chargers. So I charge my car. And so that I get about 70 miles to the gallon in those days. And then I come home and then my wife takes the car and does her thing. Now, Fridays, I try to do a 12-hour day. I do a little bit in the morning and then I take a break. I charge my car. I do some work for my clients. And then I go to, the college and then I just stay around there the whole night. And I try not to leave the campus. So every now and then Uber tries to pull you off campus and take you somewhere else. I just keep declining those trips and I stay right on campus. And I do that till about 1 o'clock. And depending upon the day or the week or whatever, I might go back out on Saturday, in the afternoon and kind of either complete, a 60 trip quest or something like that.
Right. So
but
you're a part-time driver then, right?
Yeah, I'm a part-time driver, but the way I think about Uber is I think about it as my full-time income, so I'm making somewhere between $500 to $1,000 a week. But I think of it as like, if I lost all of my clients, can Uber pay the bills? And so I try to prepare myself to do a 40-hour or 50-hour shift if necessary to pay all the bills. I haven't had to do that. And I know it's physically demanding, my body and how it might, quite frankly, just sitting for those hours. But yeah, that's kind of the way I look at it. And I would probably, if I had to do a 40 or 50-hour shift, I would basically drive all day, Friday for 12 hours, and I would drive all day Saturday for 12 hours.
Yeah.
And then I would probably drive in the mornings, just a larger shift in the mornings, Monday through Thursday.
Yeah. So the one thing that I noticed with a lot of successful drivers is that, we talk quite a bit about multi-apping and utilization factors, how busy you are, but it seems like if you can squeeze 5 trips in an hour, you're busy enough, right?
No doubt.
In a lot of cities, that's not available to drivers. I mean, that's
It's
a
true.
fact. And we talked about this, last 3 months on Show Me the Money, is that in a lot of cities, there is massive oversaturation of drivers going on. So let's talk a little bit about that. What do you see? Do you see, less requests, or are you waiting more in between requests? What's happening in Syracuse?
Well, very few times in the last 3 years have I ever not had a trip ready for me. So basically, when I turn the app on, it immediately gives me a trip. And when I'm dropping off that passenger, I'm getting the next trip. So I'm typically getting, I'd say 95% of the time, I'm getting trips while I'm in transit with my current trip.
Right.
It's nonstop. Yeah. So, and maybe Syracuse is a fluke like that, but
Yeah.
I've never, occasionally, like this morning, I dropped off somebody and I had to wait 2 minutes for my next trip.
Yeah.
Um, Now I have noticed, in fact, I got my data right up here in front of me and I can send this to you. It's on my website too, all my
Yeah.
data, but my fares are down. So my earnings per hour in 2022 were $31.96 an hour. That's how much I made in total with Quest, surges, bonuses, and everything
Yeah.
per hour.
Is that gross?
That's total gross. Yeah, that's
Total
not
gross.
net. My net or my gross this year is $26.57.
Hmm.
So I'm off about $5, in my gross earnings this year. And I attribute that to basically two things. Number one, the promotions are down.
Yep.
My promotions per trip last year were $2.19 per trip. This year it's $1.12.
Yeah. The promotions are down throughout the country because I think, this is the best time to actually be Uber or Lyft for the fact that there are so many drivers out there. As you know, macroeconomic conditions, are forcing people to make a few hundred extra bucks a week, and they're out there and they got to do what they got to do to put food on the table, and there's nothing to blame.
That's correct.
But it's really helping Uber and Lyft. And I was going to ask you this as well because I know you guys. Do you guys have upfront fares and upfront destination now?
We do. Yeah, we got it, about, I don't know, 4, 5, 6 months ago, I think. I
Yeah,
can't
about the
remember.
same time, right? So, do
Yeah.
you think that had something to do with your earnings to be down about 15% from 22 to 23?
No, no, no. Because my peak earnings were last semester, and I think my earnings are down because college is just now getting back into session.
Okay.
So I won't know for sure how much the economy is affecting my market until about another 2 to 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Like I'm going to go out on Friday, and this Friday should be a banger Friday for me because all the colleges are in town, and because we have more than Syracuse University, we've got, 3 or 4 colleges. And then if you go with the greater area, we've got about 20.
Wow.
So there's a ton of colleges. So I think they're all back in session. This should be a good weekend. And the promotions are back up. So I think my quest this week is like $125 for 70 trips.
Yeah. Well,
So
I mean,
it's back
the
up.
promotions, there is not much you can do about. That's the variability in this
That's
business.
the variability.
You can control the things you can control, and there's things that you cannot control, and don't look back, right?
That's
So while
correct.
we're talking about control, right? I know for a fact, and we featured you on
Mhm.
Show Me the Money a couple times. Your work actually, you control your cost, and you know exactly what your costs are. So
Correct.
tell us what you do, how you do it. I know you have an accounting background and you like numbers and you like spreadsheets. But when I
Yeah.
talk about these, a lot of drivers go, "Oh, that's boring. I'm not going to put that much work into it." But I'm like, that's why you're not successful because you don't know what your costs are, right? The basic stuff. So you run this as a small business of yours, basically.
Correct. Yeah. So and the first thing I do is I figure out what my fixed costs are every single week. So my fixed costs are costs that are going to never change regardless whether I drive or not. So to me, I want Uber to cover all of my expenses, my entire car. We're not talking about taxes here. I don't care about taxes. I'm just talking about costs. So the first thing I do is what's my car payment? I have a car payment, then I have insurance. Now, I know I'm still going to have those expenses even if I don't Uber, but I don't care. I'm just counting that. So I have $119.17 every week in fixed costs. That's car payment, insurance, my car wash, Sirius XM. I think that's it. Oh, and I put a $2,000 away every year for maintenance,
Yeah.
for a breakdown, if the car were to break down kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I cover those fixed costs. So no matter what, I got to make, $6,000 give or take in a year, just to cover my fixed costs. Now the variable costs, I think we all know gas really well. I think we're all really good about tracking gas. I also track maintenance. I know how much it costs me per mile. It's about 4 cents per mile to maintain my vehicle. That's oil changes, tires, et cetera, et cetera. And then depreciation. One of the things I add as an expense is the depreciation of my vehicle because I do have a new Prius. I bought it a year ago.
Right. So
Um,
do you, but like you said 4 cents a mile for maintenance and depreciation. Did you go out basically saying, okay, I have a new car, it's going to last me so and so miles, 300,000 miles, right?
Correct.
And then
Yep.
is that what you did? Divided by all your variable costs into that, right? And then to come up with pennies.
That's correct. So my depreciation is 10 cents. My maintenance is 4 cents. So 14 cents for those two on top of my gas or my variable costs. But the depreciation, the way I came up with it was, yeah, I think I bought the car for 30,000 roughly,
Right.
right? And I think it's going to be worth about $3,000 when I sell it. It's about 300,000 miles. And then I just divide that and I came up with 10 cents per mile.
Yeah.
And it's a straight line depreciation. It's not variable. Obviously, the car depreciates a lot more in the beginning
Right.
of owning the vehicle, but it's just too complicated to try to calculate that. I
Yeah,
think I
but
do. Yeah,
yeah, but I mean, you do have a very, very close number when it comes to your pure costs when it per
correct.
mile, right?
Correct.
And then you ultimately figure out, starting with that cost structure, you know
Yes, sir.
exactly, what your numbers are at the end of the week or at the end of a shift, right?
Correct. And I even calculate my taxes. So the way I calculate taxes, I know the deduction of 65 cents per mile, and I know how many miles that I drive. I can say, well, I made this amount in revenue, and I know my tax deduction off of that. So this amount is taxed. I just put away 15 cents for, or 15% of that for taxes. That's not really my real tax rate.
Yeah.
But the way I handle it financially is I have a separate account just for my Uber money. So basically all this money goes into this one account, and I try to keep a certain dollar amount in there for my depreciation so I can purchase another vehicle. I keep another amount in there just for if there's a I know if there's a wreck, there's a $2,500 deductible, and also just my gas comes out of that particular one. And so that's how I take my own profits is I make sure there's a certain threshold of money in there. So a good example is my car's worth, I bought it for 33,000 is actually what I purchased for it, something like that. And I think it's worth about 27,000 right now on KBB. So if I want to go buy another one, I need that gap,
Right.
right? I need the 27, minus the three. So I need roughly 6 to 7,000 in that account,
Yeah. Well,
in that.
that's such great advice, Levi, because a lot of
Yeah.
people commingle their Uber income into everything else, and then, I mean, look, rideshare was wonderful all throughout the country, and in your city, probably, a lot of people may call you he's in a bubble or whatever. It's not true. It's not true. That's not the case. Rideshare, obviously, incomes are down over the last few years. There's no denying that. I mean, it
Correct.
is what it is. However, if you commingle everything into one account and pay your rent and this and that and your food costs, whatever out of that, your daily expenses, then that's why you're going to complain at the end of the year. Oh, I drove for a
That's
year,
right.
put 60,000 miles on my car. I have nothing to show for it. That's because you didn't separate, look at it as a business and, those are your business expenses and then, your daily living expenses. But I think that's such great advice. We probably will do like a short snippet video out of just what you said, that don't mix, business with pleasure right there, right?
Correct. Well, and that's kind of the way I look at it. You asked me how I look at Uber. It's not my full-time job, but I want to be ready if it is my full-time job. If God forbid I need to go out there to pay the bills, I want to know exactly what I need to do every single week to pay the bills. And so I put that money into that account and I draw from it that way.
Yeah.
And so just so you know, last year, 2022, after all of my expenses to include car payment, insurance, and that's the full amount. Oh, by the way, my cell phone, I forgot about that.
Yeah.
$19.17 an hour.
Net.
So that's net on everything, So I think $19.17, that's after I pay taxes and everything. That's a good income. It's not, you're not going to get rich. I get that.
Yeah.
But $19 an hour is good money after you paid for everything. And
Yeah, on a net
yeah.
basis, absolutely is.
Yeah.
We have like a couple, 3 minutes left. So I want to talk a
Sure.
little bit about, it's not a hobby. I mean, you have an amazing website, amazing blog. I've frequently visited. Let's talk a little bit, a couple of 30 seconds about that. And then I'm going to ask you what I ask finally for everybody, how long you're going to keep doing it. And then would you ever think of doing something else? So
yeah, that's a great question. So Tip You in the App is the name of the blog. We've all been there, right? So we're driving along. The passenger says, "Hey, I'm going to get some cigarettes. Can you stop over that gas station? I'll tip you." I'll tip you in the app. And I read that to mean I'm not getting the tip, right?
Yeah.
As soon as they say they're going to give me a tip,
Yeah.
you're not going to get the tip. So I just thought it'd be fun to kind of start creating content around that. I don't, while I am an accountant and an economist, and I do love a lot of numbers, I really wanted to create content that's a lot more about the experience of an Uber driver. Because to follow up to your other question there is how long will I keep doing it? As long as I'm having fun, I love this. I, honest to goodness truth, Sergio, out of the 5,000 some odd trips that I've done, I've had maybe 20 that are really, unpleasant experiences, from somebody being sick in my vehicle to just being rude. I say they're all just amazing.
Yeah.
And the stories, the stories are what get me the most. So many people, I think, get into our car, and because they're anonymous, we're never going to see each other again. You have authentic, real, meaningful conversations, and I just love it.
Yeah.
And so that's why I created Tip You in the app. It's a place for me to start kind of just compiling that kind of stuff. And I can't do what you guys do or all the other YouTubers out there. Is what's the best way to make money? I don't know, because I don't know your market. I
Yeah.
couldn't tell you how to make market money in LA. And so instead of trying to tell people how to make the most amount of money, I think about costs from an accounting perspective.
Yeah.
And I think about ways to basically thrive as an Uber driver. What are ways we can thrive and just be healthy, enjoy it, make the most amount of money that we possibly can, knowing, our current lifestyle and stuff like that.
Well, I mean, I think you said it best at the end, which is, a lot of people have the wrong attitude to start with, right? They're too negative to do this, whatever they're doing. And I'm sure those people are going to be negative in whatever they do, right? They're never satisfied, number one. But number two, you're using the gig apps. Instead of you working for the gig apps, you're making the gig apps work for you, right?
Yeah.
And to me, that's just gold, right? Because everything, it has to start from the ground up. And I mean, I'm thrilled to speak to you, and I'm pretty sure we're going to have you as as an educator now on Show Me the Money, talk about these costs and what you do with your accounts down to the pennies. We don't want everybody to do, well, I'm sure not too many people can do what you do, but even if they come close to it, I think they'll have better time doing rideshare.
Yeah, and what I'm trying to do is just give it away for free. I'm like, go to my website. If you want to create a spreadsheet just like mine, the spreadsheet's there.
Yeah.
So all the formulas are there. I create calculators, and because I don't know, I just really like it.
Yeah.
and people tease me, and I get it, but we all have our nerd aspect to us, and that's my nerdism, and that's what I do.
No, there's nothing wrong with what you're doing, and I wish you the best of success for 2023. And well, obviously, we're going to keep in touch, right? We're not going to let you go anywhere. So I'm not going to ask you about your golf game today, but I will ask you about it later.
Yeah, I have to go a couple thousand miles south of here to play golf right now. It's pretty miserable.
Anyway, be safe out there. We'll catch you later.
Hey, take care. Thanks, Sergio.